Thank you for tuning in to Love in Your Hands with Cynthia Clark, the podcast about how to live life with love, passion, and purpose. This podcast is sponsored by loveinyourhands.com, the place to heal your emotional past, identify real compatibility, and find long-lasting love through the merging of ancient science, modern technology, and quantum physics. Tired of superficial connections? Start your free Soulmate Connection membership today at loveinyourhands.com. Now here's your host, Cynthia Clark, palm reading consultant, compatibility expert, and heart harmonizer. Hi there, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Cynthia Clark, and I am always excited about our topics of the day. So today we're looking at breaking free and staying free, and what does that even look like? And I like to start out every episode with a little palmistry because, of course, your hands reflect exactly who you are and how you interact with your environment. And it turns out that you can actually identify if you have felt isolated in the past, and especially as a child. You know, the most vulnerable time of our lives is when we are right after we're born to the time we're about 6 years old. We are actually in our subconscious mind and we're just absorbing literally everything around us. And if we're not feeling like we're nurtured or we're connected, that's actually going to show up in our hands. And how it shows up in our hands is in our little finger. Okay, little finger is called Mercury, represents our communication and also our intimate connections. So when this finger forms what we call low set, meaning that it drops into the palm and it doesn't have like it's not set up higher on the hand. So in other words, next to the ring finger, it actually looks like it's displaced. And if you look at my hand, I actually have a low set little finger. And so what that means is that as a child, I felt isolated. And it's kind of funny when I talked to my mom about when I was a kid, she's like, you always wanted to play by yourself. And I don't know if that was because of this setting or, you know, I'm really not sure, but it was something that showed up in me. And in adulthood, how it shows up is that it can mean that you're attracted to older partners. So that's another kind of interesting side effect of this low set little finger. By the way, it is 7 times more likely to show up on women's hands than it is on men's hands. And so statistically, I'm not sure why that is, but that's how it shows up. So that is today's palm reading lesson. Take a look at your own little finger and see where it is set. And the good news is we can always overcome any challenge that comes our way, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm bringing in a really special guest. I've got Marian McSpadden, and she is, along with her husband, she owns a multi-million-dollar business, which is amazing. But she was born in the secluded culture of a horse-drawn buggy religious organization. So yeah, wow, talk about contrast. That's just amazing to me. And she is now a speaker and coach, and she helps people with all kinds of stuff. So we're going to learn all about Marian and her story. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for hosting me, Cynthia.
So tell us a little bit about this. I mean, this is a huge contrast, obviously. So how did this, tell us a little bit about your history.
Well, Cynthia, I think I grew up like every boy and every girl does in the entire world, and that is we want to be loved, and we have the basic human needs of having food and a bed and a place to live and be protected. And I had that in my growing up years. I always had everything that I needed, and I never lacked for anything except emotionally. I grew up in a very cultural community where we didn't drive cars. We had horses and buggies right here in the Midwest of the United States of America. And that in itself is not a bad experience. I mean, most people love horses if they get to be around them for any length of time. And I loved my horse. You know, I loved riding it. I loved driving it. And we had a 400-acre dairy farm. So there was lots of outdoor activity. I'm very much an outdoors girl. I still like kind of the fight of the wind, or, you know, if it's windy outside, I love being outside. I'm an outdoorsy person. So the lifestyle and the culture was not so difficult for me, but the emotional pain that brought me to 34 years old, when it was almost like my world caved in on me and I was forced to start looking at what was not working.
Mm. So, yeah, I mean, when you're growing up, you think whatever your environment is normal,
Yes.
right? So, so yeah, so tell us a little bit about the emotional pain that you felt.
Well, you know, you just named it. You don't know life differently other than how you grew up. And most people will, if they are not challenged, will never challenge what they believe. They will just believe what they've always believed and what their circumstances influence them in. And that's how I was for all my life. I grew up on the farm, and then I became a school teacher in the one-room schoolhouse. Then I became a midwife, and I helped the women birth their babies in their homes in the community. And I think it was part of that weight of the responsibility of, you know, the new life being born, and people looking to me to have that understanding that really surfaced the pain on the inside. And as I felt like I was going down, and I started a little bit of a search on the inside of me, it was almost like a seed of seeking started happening. And it is amazing how the universe will line up for you, or you might say all your stars line up when you start seeking. And it's almost like um, help comes in ways that you never dreamed or imagined, or somebody you may know, or somebody you didn't even know. But that's what started happening in my life, that people influenced me. And one of those was somebody I had done babysitting for like 10 years before. And now he was a young man, 19 years old, and he saw my pain. He was from the outside, but that, you know, long distance connection, hadn't seen them for 7, 8 years. And he saw my pain, and they had done a self-development program, their family. And he kind of primed me for this. And when the moment was right, he said, Marian, you are stubborn and unsubmissive. And he said some more words, and I can't remember them, but it shocked me. And sometimes we just need that little shocker that will actually get us to start listening. Because before that, I was kind of like a balloon full of hot air. You know, there was no room for anything to go in. And it's like it just took a little ping out of me, like, oh, you know, it deflated that belief system that I had, that I was this good Mennonite girl.
Mm.
And out of that, I started seeking. I started, um, because he also planted some things back into me, because he had some wisdom and knowledge that I didn't have. And I tried to get better on my own, but I came to the place where I just was going down. And that's where help came in a way. And I did a self-development program that, through that program, I shared with another girl, kind of like I'm talking with you. And I said, you know, I never shared this with an adult. And so when I was done with my story, she says, oh, I was raped when I was 5 years old too. And I actually lost consciousness. I just dropped like a sack of potatoes or something. You know, I lost consciousness because I never put words to it when I was an adult. And um, just all of the emotional pain, the suppressed pain brought me to a place where um, I don't think I would have physically survived if I hadn't got help, because it was so oppressive and so heavy. But that search and coming to the place where I started seeking just was like a little roadmap, not straight, but it started leading me. And I also got a new connection with God that became kind of like an internal guiding system. And just, it was amazing how life suddenly took on, almost like I had this key inside of me that was a key of hope. And I could take that hope key and I could unlock doors. And I always thought I had no options. You know, this is the room you're in and this is where you stay. No, I had hope, and that hope started unlocking doors. And when you follow that progression, all of a sudden you're out of your comfort zone and going places that you never dreamed you would. And I knew it was right. It always felt uncomfortable, but it also felt right to me. I knew that I was going where I needed to go, even though I didn't know what that meant or where it was.
Right. So do you feel like we all have this ability to just become more aware that there's more for us?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, yeah, because sometimes it seems like, you know, people who are in that world, they're so stuck, right?
Right.
And they don't even question, like you said, they don't even question that there's anything else. So,
It's true. But, you know, in my journey, I started looking for a new community of people that I felt would believe um, that ever growing. I felt like I was this ever growing person, hungry to learn more. Like I would go eat, but I could never get enough of learning, of taking information in, and it just kept changing me. But one of my biggest disappointments was that I found many people groups, and it, like everywhere I went, it seemed like people were more selfish than the people that I left, because there's a lot of selflessness that happens within that the culture that I grew up in. And we're not taught that you are entitled to anything. You know, we were taught that you work for what you earn, and handouts were not, you know, you never thought about a handout. So when I found other circles, I'm like, these people are so selfish. They are so um it's almost like they are absorbing everything for themselves. And I'm not saying there wasn't a degree of that where I came from, but it was almost like it was more in other areas, other people groups. And so my disappointment was, these people have opportunity and they could have so much more, but they are limited with the okay, what happened is I found that people had more material things, but internally they were still broken and hurt people, just like I was.
sure,
Just like the people that I moved away from looking for a new community, I found those people to be broken and sometimes very messed up too.
yeah, I mean, you look at some of the famous, especially like singers and actors, you know, they have all the money in the world, but they're tortured inside.
Yes,
A lot of them die from a drug overdose, or you know, things
correct.
like that, or they commit suicide. So you're right about that. It's not about the material; it's about that
Yes.
internal. So how do we nourish that, and what are some things we can do?
Well, obviously, I got to try that out because now I had all the material things, the whole world at my fingertips and my disposal. And you talked about isolation, and I think if I could do one thing over, um, see, some of my departure or my exit or escape, whatever you want to call it, that big breakthrough moment where I separated from the family of origin, um, was I had to do it secretly. So as I moved into my new life, I went into hiding for 9 months so that they wouldn't be able to find me physically and coerce me with their words to go back, because I knew they would. And I knew that I was so vulnerable because I did not leave them because I didn't want to be with them. I moved because I was being drawn somewhere else.
Mm.
I didn't hate what I left behind. I loved so much. And so it was, for me, it was a grief. It was like if my family had all physically died. I was single. I didn't have children or a husband. I was 34 years old, single, never had a date. Um, completely, just completely free and single that way. And that was good in some ways. On the other side, I grieved that I had to do it all by myself. I wanted somebody to go with me. I would have liked to have some companionship, but it was very much a lone journey, except I felt that guiding hand of God with me. And that was like an ever comfort and a source of strength for me that I can't even begin to say how wonderful that is or was in those days of crisis and unknown and scary new territory. And but then on the other side, how do you live a free life now and not go back? Oh, so to go back to the secretive part, I isolated myself. So
Mm.
there's a lot of isolation that I had to break free from. And isolation and freedom kind of don't go together, do they?
No, they don't.
So I broke free, but then I had to still walk out of that isolation stage. And that was a really, really hard battle because there was people in my life that wanted to keep me isolated in my new life.
Mm.
And through 18 years now being on the other side, it is a constant reevaluating, readjusting again. Who are these new people groups that come in your life? And they may add value to you here, but it's not really your camping place. It's
Mm.
almost like a restaurant on a journey. These people are part of your life for a season, but you're on this journey and you don't get to stay and camp with those people.
Mm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because, yeah, I used to belong to the Mormon church. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I left the church when I was 15, which is pretty young. But at the time, I definitely felt like an outsider. It was like, oh boy, here I am, kind of going all on my own. I would say 97% of my classmates were Mormon. And so I was part of that now 3%. And
Right.
it was interesting because at that point I felt like I wanted to break free so bad that I actually graduated from high school 1 year early.
Wow.
And I was like, I need to go straight to college because I just need to branch out into a bigger community.
Sure.
And that worked out really well for me. But it was a lonely road. You're so right about that. And
Yeah.
it's like, you know what? I don't regret it. I certainly don't regret it because you meet new people. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes those people are only there for a short amount of time. Because then I had my college group, of course, and then after that, it's like, well, I'm not going to see those guys anymore. After you graduate, then you get new groups of people as you grow, and I
Yeah.
think that's good.
Yeah, I guess it is. I didn't like it at first.
Yeah.
So I think finding um, ever learning, ever growing, because once you've experienced such momentum in your life, you start feeling stagnant when you're not progressing anymore.
Hmm.
And when I say progressing is we're absorbing more, we're taking in more, our influence is becoming stronger, our message is becoming stronger. Um, um, I just, for me, I can't settle. I
Yeah.
cannot settle.
So to really stay free, we have to continually ask ourselves how we're growing and like what's next, because we're really here to expand. And
Yes.
and the universe is also expansive. They've
Yes.
measured the universe, and there's what's called the Doppler shift. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they observe the frequency, it's called the red shift, blue shift, and we're definitely in red shift. So that's what they observe in the universe. So the universe is expanding. And so if we're part of that universe, we're also expanding. So, and I think that's just the nature of the soul.
Right. I don't think any of us has maxed out what's available to us.
Mhm.
Not even the wisest people in the world have maxed out because it's so expansive. I really believe that. And I think on a just a common everyday level, because all of us do the same common things. We sleep, we eat, we have a place to live. And so how do you incorporate a growing environment and not um, sabotage the good things in your life because you become so focused on moving forward? And I think relationships are very important. And I've made my marriage, I married outside of the community, and I've made my marriage very important. And it's been a learning curve for us to know how to live together and to work together and to work in our business together. But because we were both able to say, there's some things that are not negotiable, and we're going to work on the things that are um, not working and move forward and not sabotage what we have. So the business, the marriage, and um, you know our principles that we have taken on as our boundaries. And I think having good boundaries is another thing that we still need to guard boundaries no matter where we're at in life.
Mhm.
My community boundaries were different. It was all about the material things, which you can and can't do. And now it's not the material things, but I need to have boundaries that are healthy, boundaries in how I work with relationships, boundaries in, my health.
Mhm.
There's some things that can destroy our health if we don't have good boundaries.
Yeah, for sure. Don't eat, a whole pizza in one sitting.
Exactly.
That's not going to do your arteries any favors.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you work with people now? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I I coach people. I do it through a Zoom online setting. So we identify, or sometimes people know what it is that they want to have a breakthrough, or the one thing that they'd like to have resolved in their life, and to go from being in the complacent or the lacking place to the other side where there is fullness and increase and a flow in their life. When you can feel that flow going through your life, and that's amazing. That is an amazing place to be compared to stagnant,
Yes.
a little murky, a little sad, dismal.
Yes, absolutely. We all want to feel that flow.
Yes. And
Great.
so people sometimes feel imprisoned by their circumstances or relationships or our emotions. We get to identify, and that's what I do, is help people make that transition.
Well, that sounds beautiful. So how do people reach you? Can you give us your contact info?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I have a website, everythingyouTry.com, everythingyouTry.com, or my name works too, MarianMcSpadden.com. And there is a link there to connect to my free chapter. I wrote a compilation book this year with some other authors, but my chapter that I wrote for that book, it's called Business Boosts, is available for free for a download. And then there's also a button there that they can click to connect with me, and we can do a free consultation call to identify what it is that they would like to have changed in their life, or renewed, taken from here to there, whatever that is for them.
Well, that sounds beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom. And yeah, it's such a great story. It's truly inspiring. So thank you very much.
And yours in return.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. Remember that you can live the life you want regardless of your story, and just get out there and do it. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care. Thank you for listening to Love in Your Hands. Please rate, review, and subscribe to show your support. This podcast is sponsored by loveinyourhands.com, the place to find the secret ingredients to your soulmate. Start your free Soulmate Connection membership today using the most innovative and accurate algorithm to match you to potential long-lasting love, all at loveinyourhands.com.